Anti-trans bigots are experts in denying reality. They deny the science of multiple disciplines, they deny the demonstrable harm they inflict upon society, but most of all, they deny the very nature of their ideology. Because they have to. To acknowledge what they truly are, the beliefs that define their politically driven hive mentality would kill any political momentum they've managed to build. Their bigotry and violence only persist so long as they sell the lie that they are the champions of the people. It's why they spent so long asserting that cis women hated trans people when it's actually cis men providing the numbers behind the movement. It's why they asserted that they are the defenders of cis lesbians when, back in reality, between 84 to 96% of cis lesbians are not merely tolerant of trans people, but are actively supportive of us. It's why they asserted that vulnerable women, like those trapped in prisons, are the most likely to hate trans people, when it is those very same cis women who are the people protecting their trans siblings from state violence on the inside, as seen in the case of Tony Azick. Everything anti-trans bigots forward as the truth or even common sense is built on little more than a foundation of lies. Yet they've been at it for so long that some of them actually seem to believe their own bullshit. Some of them seem to be arguing not merely to prevent their movement being marked and eradicated for the intrinsic threat to humanity that it is, but to avoid cognitive dissonance, the soul-crushing realization that maybe they're nothing more than a bunch of fascists. This is how we end up in situations where, as leaders of the movement are very open about their Nazi nature, a few members can only deny what it is they're complicit in, as we'll see today. Just a heads up, I will be talking about a number of heavy topics, including transnisia, Islamism, misogyny, ICE violence, and state murder. If work has helped you, please consider supporting us via Patreon so I can keep the channel running. You can also help us by liking, commenting, and sharing our work on social media. Hi there, mine's Ethel Thurston, she, her, they, them, and it's time to discuss how some gender-critical fascists have had a sudden reality check when it comes to their political alignment, brought on by the actions of their leaders such as Graham Linehan and Kellie-Jay Keen-Minshull. Today's topic was, in large part, sparked by the recent actions of professional sadass Graham Linehan, a leader of the gender-critical movement who is such an amazing defender of cis women and children from the evil transgender cult, that his cis wife divorced him and took the kids over his anti-trans crusade. He's also so supportive of cis lesbians that he openly shared materials designed to justify the ICE murder of Renee Good, an innocent lesbian mother of 3, not just once, but multiple times over several weeks. It must be noted that ICE refused to allow anyone to render aid to Renee after they'd shot her, even as one bystander identified himself as a physician, actions that demonstrate a clear intent to murder. Now, I mentioned the fact that Renee is both a mother and a cis lesbian, not because ICE's crimes or Linehan's inhumanity would be acceptable if she were a childless and cis-het man, but to strictly highlight Linehan's hypocrisy, how he supports the violent murder of the very people he pretends to defend as justification for his violence against trans people, much like the white nationalist who talks about needing to defend women from foreigners before going home to beat his wife. Of course, Renee was not the only innocent person murdered by ICE. Just a few weeks later, Alex Pretti, an intensive care nurse for the United States Department of Veteran Affairs, was shot multiple times as he tried to help a fellow human being off the ground, a woman, as the pair of them were being assaulted by ICE agents. Now, Alex was legally licensed to carry a firearm, which he was at the time, but had already been disarmed by an ICE agent whilst he was trying to help others, only to then be shot multiple times, with most reports agreeing that he was shot at least 10 times, murdering him as a result. In both instances, the federal government denied external investigators access to the crime scenes in order to try and shield the ICE agents responsible from being held to justice. So, how did Linehan respond to said nurse being murdered whilst he was trying to help out a woman being assaulted by ICE? Why, by retweeting a post claiming that Pretti, quote, died doing what he loved the most, trying to prevent rapists and pedophiles from being arrested, end quote. A claim with absolutely zero basis in reality. For a start, Alex was helping other people, not the individual being targeted by said ICE operation. But even if he had, the person ICE was setting out to terrorize, Jose Herta Chuma, only had misdemeanor-level traffic offenses from over a decade ago. Yet Linehan promotes claims that traffic offenses make someone a rapist and a pedophile. Because of course he would. It's a tried and true method for him, since he constantly accuses the trans community of being groomers in order to justify his violence upon us. Violence which, ironically, includes the fact that in 2024, then 56-year-old Graham Linehan was caught on film sexually harassing a 17-year-old girl in the street, attempting to sexually degrade her for his own enjoyment. As has become a staple here, every accusation is a confession when it comes to fascists. It's why they love to ignore the science, accusing trans people of denying reality, whilst they straight up and murdered it, all to preserve their self-aggrandizing narrative. It's mirror propaganda on their part, plain and simple. But Linehan's open support for other fascists has finally reached a point where it's starting to become a problem for some within his movement, disabling their ability to effectively deny their own fascist nature. This has led a few gender-critical fascists, such as Millie Hill, to speak out, desperately declaring that, quote, "It's not okay to wrest protesters to the ground and shoot them in the back in the street. Linehan's recent tweets in support of fascist America make me ill. We may overlap in men can't be women, but that's where it ends. Ditto Kellie-Jay Keen-Minshull. I've had enough of the extremism." End quote. Before going on to say that she doesn't care if Linehan or Minshull's fans come after her. The thing is, you don't get to say that you've had enough of the extremism whilst being the willing participant of a movement that is intrinsically Nazi fascist, by which I not only mean that the two core gender-critical beliefs are fundamentally fascist in nature, but that both beliefs have their origins in the Nazis of Nazi Germany, with some gender-critical fascists openly quoting Hitler's Mein Kampf as a source of inspiration in demonizing trans people, as has been evidenced by us on this channel for many years now. I remember doing our video on how the US far-right directly funds the gender-critical movement, including Kellie-Jay Keen-Minshull, all the way back in 2019. We, the trans community, are incredibly good at supplying receipts on this issue, so people like Hill don't get to claim ignorance. It's not that they didn't realize that they were supporting a fascist movement. At best, it's that they didn't want to know, that they actively avoided all evidence until the actions of their peers forced them to look at it. And only then, once it had breached their personal comfort, did they condemn it in a sad and desperate bid to separate themselves from the monster they've helped infect our society with? The thing is, people like Mill are not the majority within the gender-critical movement. Not only did Minshull go on to respond to Hill, mocking her, but the Nazi rally organizer then proceeded to make a post about founding an anti-Islam trust in order to target Muslims in a similar way to how she has targeted trans people for years. And whilst Hill's post condemning Minshull and Linehan had received a few hundred likes, Minshull received support in the literal thousands. So, while certain gender-critical fascists are set on living out a That Mitchell and Webb look sketch, you know the one.
Are we the baddies?
The sad reality is, many of them have eroded any pretense of humanity to the point that they just don't care, as seen in this exchange in which British politician, gender-critical leader, and self-proclaimed defender of working-class cis women, Rosie Duffield, made clear her continued friendship with the Vile Ogre, Graham Linehan, confessing that, quote, "Graham's my friend, but we don't have to agree on every single thing. I'm appalled by what's happening in the US, but he lives there now and is entitled to have a totally different view." End quote. To which Linehan desperately tries to force her to agree with him, asserting that, quote, "Follow Cam Higby for what's really going on. He's just exposed links between Minnesota's leadership and the organized groups trying to stop ICE from doing the job they were doing more under Obama." End quote. Only for Duffield to follow up with, quote, "I agree with Martina, Graham. It's murder. But that doesn't mean I don't respect that you see it otherwise." End quote. Which, holy fucking shit. Can you imagine remaining friends with someone who supported the state murder of more than 2 innocent people? Because Renee and Alex are not the only people ICE have killed, they're merely victims deemed respectable, i.e. white enough, to catch national attention and outrage, only to trivialize it as a difference of view, as nothing more than Linehan seeing things otherwise. And we've covered Duffield's attempts to exploit working-class cis women as a weapon against trans people in the past, cis women like Rennie Good. This entire shit show once again exposes said declared concerns to have been nothing more than a lie. Because that's all they have. That denial of reality, specifically mirror propaganda. People like Linehan, Keen-Minshull, and Duffield aren't the anomalies within the gender-critical movement. Hill is. Though, that will change. She too will have her humanity eroded as she hangs around fascist spaces, the only spaces which share her views and will be willing to accept her, as expressed by many gender-critical fascists online. The only way she can save herself would be to abandon the movement entirely, to drop her hatred for the trans community and prioritize on fixing the awful creature she has become, if not for her sake, then for the sake of everyone else in society. But sadly, that is too much for many like her. They are weak. That's all there is to it. Yet said imbalance is why this video was originally titled Anti-Trans Bigots Get a Reality Check. But the more I wrote, the more I realized just how irrelevant people like Hill are to the big picture. The gender-critical movement was not captured by fascists. It was birthed by them, a direct descendant of the Nazis of Nazi Germany. A fact that needs to be remembered. And if you'd like to help us remind people, please consider becoming one of the wonderful patrons who make our work possible. You can also make a one-time donation via PayPal or Super Thanks on YouTube. On that note, we'd just like to thank the following people: Matthew Kovac, Flynn, Loombat, Boea, Deborah Goldsmith, Higgins the Seagull, Jackie Sins, Mix Alba, and Peter Cole. And with that, take care, and I'll catch you next time.